Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Albert.
You are a writer, an info designer, and you're the managing partner of a small innovation company.
I am.
Do you want to add to that?
The company that I run is FourSight. We're based in Chicago. I'm the mother of three, athlete, a volunteer, a person of general curiosity. I suppose that's why I'm here.
That's right. So naturally the question is, what are you curious about?
Ooh, you know what? I am curious as somebody who spent my career trying to explain things to people as a writer and as a designer. I love trying to understand how people's brains work, what gets across to them, and now in this role as an innovation consultant, I actually got a Master of Science in creativity and in understanding how people think. And what makes me curious is what would it really look like if you could have X-ray vision. Mm-hmm. You can see how a person looks, you can see how they dress, but what would it be like if you had X-ray vision and could look right into their head as to how they think? Because it's very clear that people think differently, but it makes me very curious, like, what could we know? And what could we know about each other and how to work together?
So that's clearly also what you made your profession, right? So maybe you can explain a little bit about how you structured your own curiosity around that particular idea.
Sure. Well, originally as a writer, I was curious about everything, and my job was literally to sort of rent space in my head so that, I'd ask you what you did and find your passion, and I'd capture that so I could share it with other people. So I was always just curious about what people were passionate about. And then I became passionate about a particular fellow named Blair Miller, who had just gotten his degree as a Master of Science in Creativity, and I fell in love with the whole field of creativity embodied in the man I eventually married, Blair Miller. And I went to work doing my information packaging about creativity. And over time, it became clear to me that was an amazing field, an amazing study, and an amazing place to devote my interest and energy in packaging information, because it was just unknowable. The whole idea about creativity is that it is by definition novel. It's new. It's something we don't know. So it evokes creativity. It requires creativity.
But you're saying at the same time it has kind of a structure. What is that structure about?
Part of what's cool about the company that I've ended up running is that it is a research-based company in the field of creativity.
Okay.
So what we research is this measurable difference that people have for different components of creativity, like to achieve a creative outcome.
Okay.
If it were one thing, we'd all understand it. That'd be cool. But it requires so many different types of thinking and so many different types of understanding and intellectual pursuit. It requires clarifying what's going on. You have to understand what is. It involves imagining and sort of ideating what could be.
Yeah.
Right? But once you have an idea, that's about as good as having a seed. It's nothing yet. You got to plant it, you got to grow it, you got to have it evolve into a solution that brings value to different parties, and that's developing the idea. And then you have to implement it. You have to do it. So all those different components, people have measurably different levels of energy for those. And it really affects how they will approach a problem and how they will collaborate on a problem.
Okay.
And if you and I have the same, if our energies match, we'll go hog wild on certain parts of a problem or of a conversation.
Yeah.
And we'll both be perfectly happy to just skip past other whole issues that we really ought to be dealing with because, frankly, we both have low energy and we're both going to ride that together.
Right.
But part of what we all know is spectacular about working in a group and in a functional group is that people bring different things to it. They bring different expertise, they bring different experience, they bring different those different energies.
You're describing the creative process,
Yeah.
right? So how do you link that creative process to curiosity in a person?
Ooh. You know, I think, and I suspect you have discovered this in your interviews, that curiosity manifests itself differently in different people.
Yeah.
And I would bet, because this is my job, I would bet that you could probably find patterns that connect to those thinking preferences I was talking about. I suspect that somebody who was fundamentally really energetic and really brought a lot of kind of personal enthusiasm to clarifying, for instance, would end up expressing their curiosity by researching, by trying to understand an analysis and gap analysis and trying to find what's there, what's missing. You know, their curiosity is perhaps more factually based and information based, whereas, you know, somebody who has a fundamental preference for ideating, that sort of imaginative stage, I would imagine that their curiosity is about how could you connect these two things that have never been put together? What would that look like? What would it look like if you flipped it on its head? You know, really creating a lot of turbulence in what is.
Yeah.
Not really trying to understand it, but trying to mix it up.
Yeah.
And what would happen? Yeah. And, you know, if you had somebody with a preference for developing, you know, what would their curiosity look like? Like, what could the whole system look like? What could the blueprint of this entire plan look like?
Yeah.
You know, it might very well put me to sleep. Yeah. But if you are a developer, you know, that's incredibly compelling. That you could grasp that in one go. And an implementer, you know, what would happen if I just put it out there? What happened if we just try it right now? You know, that would make the clarifier panic. Like, don't do that. You know, like, and the developer wants the whole thing all, you know, blueprinted out. You know, so we have very different tolerances for different types of curiosity, I suspect, and I wonder if you could link that. Yeah.
So curiosity, as I learn more and more, is the starting point often for exploring certain things, and it's directed in those different areas. But I think the seed for all those activities is rooted in that curiosity. So how do you place curiosity in team processes?
You know, I think, as you say, if curiosity is the inception point, is the like, we know there's something else. We know there's something we don't know. Yeah. You have a buy-in that there will be change. You know?
And can you help that with
what you do? Can you support that? You know, honestly, I think what we do by sharing with people what their preferences are and what their preferences aren't, and what other people's preferences are and aren't, and how to work across those gaps, allows people to hear other people's expressions of curiosity with more respect.
Okay.
You know, so if you're asking questions about facts and data, and frankly it's not my thing, I might just dismiss it because it's not really my thing. But if I understand, actually, you're a sort of different type of thinker than I am, and you're asking those questions, if I tune into that, it might bring me a level of understanding that I wouldn't have otherwise.
So in a way, by dealing with all these different ways of dealing with each other professionally, you're opening more space for curiosity and exploration.
Yeah, I think you definitely are. Yeah. Because I think what you're doing is creating an openness in general. And that openness to novelty means you'll be more willing to tolerate curiosity coming from, you know, directions that you might not engender it.
You mentioned you're a mother. So where does curiosity hit you in the family?
Ooh. You know, the immediate overlap of my professional job and my parenting job is you wonder what kind of thinker your own kids are. Because of course you're using this lens on everything. And you use it on your kids. And it's fascinating to try to discover who you've got. Okay. You know, when I had my first child, I thought that child was a reflection of me. It was like a perfect mirror of me. Until I had my second child, and I thought, oh, no, that's clearly not the way it's working. And by the time I had my third child, I was just a lot more curious. Like, who's this one? You know, who are they, and what could I create for them to allow that to really manifest?
So what is driving curiosity in people? What do you think?
I think part of what drives curiosity in people is a comfort with not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you are not comfortable with not knowing, it's not comfortable to be curious.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're not comfortable with some level of ambiguity, it's not that comfortable to be curious.
So you need a safe environment? Is that what you're saying?
I think you need a safe environment. I think you need to give yourself permission not to know, not to be an authority. I mean, you know, I run a business. I ought to know everything about it. But part of my business is that we are trying to create knowledge, which means there is sort of an admission we don't know everything there. I really don't often say to my children, well, the answer is because I'm your mother and I know, you know. Because I'm pretty conscious that most of the time I don't really know, always, exactly. And it's engendered a lot of respect that I'm trying to figure that out with them.
Let's talk about education. How do you think curiosity plays into education? What's the situation
You know,
about that?
I have 3 teenagers. One has just gone to college, and one is a junior, and one has just entered high school. I am really happy with the high school they're in because there is an effort to bring creative thinking and curiosity into that environment, but overwhelmingly the social pressure they feel to perform, to get grades, to score well on standardized tests. I mean, the level of self-definition that gets aligned with their ability to get the right answer drives a lot of curiosity out.
Yeah.
You know, what they're curious about is how they're going to play the system so they can get the best grade.
Yeah.
That's not curiosity.
Yeah.
That's gaming. You know, that's different. Curiosity is about finding a topic and understanding what the definition of the border is as given, and sort of being curious what's outside that. You know, where do the edges look like? Where does it fold? Where does it bend? What are the assumptions you're making about you know, this box that our assumptions are just that?
What would be an ideal balance in educating, adults or students, to kind of, because you need to have kind of that information transfer somehow,
No
or
question.
performance support for them as well in some way, but what would be a balance to the creative mind?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And people assume that because I, you know, am a big believer in creativity, that that's what I want, and I don't want the rest. And the truth is, for me, watching my children develop, it's really clear that learners need recipes. You know, when you start out and you don't know anything, you need some basic building blocks. You need to understand a simple way and a simple framework and a simple format. And so there is a lot of straight learning and information transfer that has to happen. At the same time, there's a lot of discovery that attaches a lot more meaning to some of even the basic information transfer, and to develop a learning environment where people can personalize that learning and evolve it and grow it in a direction that they're enthusiastic about. That blending of straight evaluative learning and critical learning and rote learning with the ability to synthesize what they're learning, you know, that makes it a very dynamic situation and really makes the learning come alive, both for the teacher and for the student. It's much harder to do well. Hypothetically, we want people to ingest this information.
Yeah.
We want them to digest the information.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just getting it into their mouth and then the pass through. You know, you want this to be nourishing.
Yeah.
So it has to become a part of them.
And they must be interested in it. You went back into the curiosity. So they must be thrilled by the learning process, and that's kind of what's missing sometimes, right?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think, I don't see my junior being thrilled by the learning process. She realizes that this is the year when all the grades are going to count. That really squeezes a lot of the thrill out of it, I can tell you that.
Absolutely, yeah.
By senior year, they offer a program called Senior Studies at this high school. And you can pick your own field of learning. And they have 4 faculty members who really support that and bracket that. And they teach you how to do independent learning. And this is a skill a lot of these kids don't have.
Okay.
But it's a difficult skill to teach. And it's a completely different way. But it's senior year.
Independent learning
Yeah.
needs curiosity as a guiding force in that sense, right?
Yeah, and it's amazing how much scaffolding has to be done for that independent learning because these guys did not learn it in school. They really didn't get that training. Curiosity requires nurture, requires training. There are tools that help it. There's language that helps it. There's sort of a culture that helps it. That's not a culture we're creating in most of the school systems that we have. Although individual teachers do it really, really well.
In your company, you see a lot of environments where creativity and curiosity happens. In what environments do you see curiosity and creativity flourish?
Where people feel like they are part of the process, where people feel like their efforts and their problem-solving efforts and their new thinking lends to change and shift and progress.
Okay.
When people feel like when they lean in, like the wagon rolls that direction.
Yeah.
And when they all lean in together, like they can really get traction.
Yeah.
It's simple. And there's a certain amount of autonomy involved in that because it is intrinsic. People feel like it is a reflection of me showing up in the workplace. That's exciting for people to be part of that. And, part of what we do in our work is try to help people identify where they get really excited. Because this is information that's just so close to you.
Yeah.
There's no way you can know it about yourself. You can't know what kind of thinker you are. It's the only kind of thinker you are. You don't have well, today I'm going to be this kind of thinker and tomorrow I'm going to be that kind of thinker. You are what you are. So to reflect that to people and to say, you're really strong here, this is where you get really excited, they're like, yeah, that's right. And they kind of sit up and they kind of look for opportunities to participate in that area. And that's electrifying to people, to sort of recognize their strengths and their energies and to leverage that for a group gets pretty exciting.
So to sum up, if you would have to phrase what curiosity is in a sentence, what would you say?
I would say curiosity is the gift of being surprised, the gift of not knowing, the gift of knowing that you don't know, and the seeing of that as a present to open.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. It was really fun talking to you.